Philippines.
Play around with it. Good job.
Those nice smiles and happy family, and this or that was ideal family.
The Reverend Moon calls his family the true family, the perfect family.
Moon is perfect human being. He's the only perfect human being on the earth. And he can choose his wife, and his wife becomes perfect as well. And so his children become perfect because they are from this perfect man and perfect woman.
And so when Moon marries more than 1,000 couples at once, as he did in New York last June, he exhorts them to live the high moral life that he supposedly exemplifies. The church told us Moon himself had matched each couple by studying their pictures and brief biographies. And the newlyweds say they want their families to be just as virtuous as his.
He sets an example as to how to be true parents. The world is in dire need of strong family values. He not only preaches that, but he lives it as well.
They have a true family, and they bring up children of goodness.
And what about sin?
No sin at all. No sin.
Drugs?
No drugs.
Alcohol?
No alcohol.
Moon's theology that he is a perfect man who can create perfect family, I think kind of falls apart if I look at his children.
The Moons gave birth to 13 children. Various individuals who've been close to them told us that in violation of church rules, they have seen some of Moon's children drink alcohol, smoke, and use illegal drugs. And Nansuksu learned that her husband is the worst of them. She lived with him here at the Moon's opulent estate north of New York City. She says the Moons knew all about her husband's drug problem, but still they spoiled him, kept showering him with cash.
When he needed cash, he went to his mom, and his mom would give him from $1,000 up to $50,000, and some
From
more.
1,000 to 50,000.
Yes, depends what he asks and what kind of mood the parents are in.
Where did all this cash come from?
I believe mainly it's coming from Japan. When Japanese leaders come in, they bring cash in, and basically they give to Reverend and Mrs. Moon.
And how would his son use those church donations?
He basically used for his cocaine, his party, his waitress, or hostess, bar hopping, all the fun things that a person can do.
Those fun things apparently included mistresses. Yojin told her he was entitled to have affairs because his father had had them. And she says Reverend Moon himself confirmed to her that he had had affairs, but the Reverend told her that God wanted him to.
He told me in person that he called it providential affairs.
Providential?
Providential affairs. It's providential means it's God's mission. So he had to have these affairs, extramarital affairs, because it was providential. It was God's mission that he had to fulfill.
Of course, Reverend Moon does not tell his followers about that part of God's mission. Instead, he preaches that adultery is a major sin.
That's the worst sin that Unification Church members could commit, to have commit adultery. Then you will basically burn in hell forever. That's the one single most worst thing that you can do. But Yosef did many times, and his parents know, but there's nothing they do.
But worse than the affairs, she says, the Reverend's eldest son would beat her. One awful night, she told us, he pummeled her while she was pregnant with their 5th child.
He was doing his cocaine ritual, and against my better judgment, I went and said, I really have to talk to you. I said, I just cannot live like this. And I took his cocaine and I tried to flush it down the toilet. That's when it started punching. And I did get black eyes and I got bloody nose. But the big fear was that he kept saying he's going to kill the baby out.
That you were carrying?
I was carrying, I was seven months pregnant, and I was pretty big. And he kept saying, I'm going to kill the baby, I'm going to kill the baby. And that's the worst fear I had. That he might punch, and then something would happen.
Whenever she told Reverend and Mrs. Moon about the beatings, Nansuk says they blamed her.
I was not an ideal wife for Hyojin. That's why Hyojin behaved a certain way toward me. And I wasn't a good member of their family. So also it was my
Who
faith.
told you that, Mrs. Moon?
Both of them, yes. And it was my faith that I have to endure these things.
Sounds familiar.
Nansuk is getting support from a surprising source, one of Reverend Moon's daughters, Jin Moon. She told us her parents blamed her, too, when she was abused by her husband.
Did he beat you?
Yes,
And you would tell your folks?
yes,
And they would say,
I deserved it.
Jin Moon is estranged from her parents, but she has never criticized them in public before. She and a close friend, Jeannie Hunter, said that by coming forward, they hope to dissuade people from joining cults. Off camera, Jin told us she does not believe her father's the Messiah. On camera, she put it this way.
He's just my father. I think that in itself should say a whole lot.
Jin is a Moon, but not a Moonie, not a believer in her father's church.
I believe in a God, but I don't think that I want to belong to one particular denomination, no.
what do you think of Nansuk? Honest.
I think she's very honest.
Do you admire her? Do you respect her? Do you believe her?
Yes, I do. I respect and admire her very much.
Nansuk got a degree in art history from Barnard College. Though she realized the perfect family was far from perfect, she tried to be philosophical about it.
So what you're saying is that they're like,
Everybody else, like all of us who are dysfunctional, I think every family has problems. So they're like everybody else, but a little more dysfunctional than I think ordinary middle class family.
well, they have the money to help them to be dysfunctional.
Yes.
The church won't say how much money Moon has or how many businesses he owns, but over the years he's reported to have amassed hundreds of millions of dollars. Former Moon insider Donna Collins was the first Western child in Moon's church. She was born into it because her parents set up the church in England.
I grew up believing he was the Messiah, but I can't imagine it now.
Moon took a personal interest in Donna, and as a favorite child from the West, she saw a lot of Moon's family.
I had more contact with his family than the average member, which is probably what led me to leave, because I saw a lot of the discrepancies between the teachings and his behavior and his family life.
The final straw for Donna and her parents came, she says, when they discovered another Moon family secret, that the Reverend has at least one illegitimate son. Moon's daughter confirmed that.
And I know, yes.
You know the child?
Yes, his name is Sammy.
And Jin Moon told us that the warm family pictures in the church magazine give a false impression. That the truth is Moon spent very little time with his children, and that he and most of his children have never been close. Nansuk says there's even a language barrier between Moon and his 5 youngest children.
Well, do his young children speak Korean?
Not really.
And the father doesn't speak much English?
Father doesn't, no.
So what you're saying is that the
The
young...
younger ones really do not.
They can't talk to their dad.
No, they can't. They can't really communicate.
Actually, that's what his daughter told me as well. But then I would say the communication that he had, even with his older children, wasn't particularly intimate.
Do you worry at all that there might be some kind of revenge exacted upon you for your speaking out?
Yes, I was extremely frightened for a long time. I couldn't speak out, but I think there is some safety in going public, and I certainly wanted to support Nansuk because I think it's wonderful that the truth comes out about him and his family.
Over the years, Nansuk says her husband became increasingly violent, and she feared that he might hurt the children. So, one night, 3 years ago, while she says her husband was locked in their bedroom after hours of cocaine, she hustled her 5 children into a minivan, hid them under blankets, and drove them out of the Moon's luxurious estate, never to return.
Now you live in a modest house in Lexington, Massachusetts. No swimming pools, no bowling alleys, no,
No babysitter, no drivers,
Right.
no cook.
You're the cook.
I'm the cook. I have to learn.
How have the children adjusted to this new lifestyle?
Oh, wonderfully. I'm proud of them. We all had to learn a new way of life.
A life that also includes fear of retaliation from the Moons.
They're not going to control my life. And I basically have to live with the fear that I have that somebody might do something to me. But that's life.
After After telling a divorce court what she has told us about her husband, Nansuk got her divorce plus $600,000 in cash and $9,000 a month for child support. Now 32 years old, she works at a center helping battered women, and she has just completed a book called In the Shadow of the Moons.
Why are you telling this story?
Because I feel that I was duped.
Duped.
I feel I was conned. And I had certain naive, I think, idealism that I wanted to work for God. And I do think a lot of people have that. And a lot of organizations like Moon do take full advantage of those people. And I was one of them.
Nansuk still believes in God, but she has a new way of looking at Reverend Moon.
I did come to the conclusion that Reverend Moon just cannot be the Messiah.
What you're saying is that he's a phony.
A con man.
The Reverend Son Young Moon is a con man.
That's the conclusion I came with. Living with a family for 15 years.
The Reverend and Mrs. Moon declined to talk to us, but they did send us a brief statement. They wrote in part, "We commiserate with Nansuk over the suffering arising from the tragic personal problems our son has faced. We as parents feel a deep sense of responsibility."
So that in itself kind of tells how the mornings came about and some of the tragedy that they do go through when they become a member and some of the pain and suffering. So I believe they believe in mediatism, channeling to contact the dead, the liberate soul of one's ancestors. They believe in mass marriages based on different racial backgrounds, arranged and performed by Moon. They believe in persuading churches to remove their cross. And they also believe that Jesus bowed down to Reverend Moon. And they also believe that Reverend Moon is the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and the Lamb of God. And they also believe that Jesus left some of his mission unfulfilled, so a third Adam was necessary as the second coming of Christ. And they also believe that, their central pillar is that Eve was not faithful to Adam, and she had an affair with Satan in the Garden of Eden, and she slept with him, and she slept with Adam after that. And for that reason, humanity was polluted, and it had sin. And that burden came about with God driving off from the Garden of Eden. And with that, Reverend Moon had to come after Jesus to kind of help cleanse us from our sin. So he is the perfect Adam, and his mission to humankind is to reclaim its original goodness by forging a new world order led by Korea, which is the Adam nation. And they also believe that America is the archangel nation that will keep Korea, the Adam nation, to root communism, in which they could bow down to the Korean-led regime with Reverend Moon as the king and Messiah to lead. Some of their teachings, they believe that they believe in the yang idea. Yeah, the yang and the yin. saying that you have to give and you have to receive. So the give and take action, meaning that we are the subject and we need an object. So as we gave, the object kind of gave back to us. So it's kind of work both ways. And they say that that's how the universe works. And they believe that God is positive and we are negative. So in order for us to have some sort of positive and true life, we will have to connect with God, and that connection will have to be done through every moon because He is the Messiah. So because Jesus came and He didn't finish His work, so every moon is the next option that we need to look forward to. Yep. So. Got one more video. Every moon's son explaining. Well, I guess it's not here.
The story you're about to see is
This video is about a girl who was, after she finished her freshman year in college, she was recruited into the Moonings. And when her family noticed that, they tried to get her back from the Mooning, and it was very difficult for them because she had been brainwashed to the point that she didn't want to have anything to do with her parents and stuff.
Nightmare, the story of a family whose daughter disappeared. When they finally found her, they had to fight just to get to talk with her because she had joined a cult. In this case, it was the so-called Moonings, followers of the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, head of the Unification Church, who became well known in the early 80s for his mass wedding ceremonies. We were approached by this family during the summer. They agreed to allow us to document their search, hoping that doing so would speed things up or at the very least help other families. Here now is their agonizing story.
For a very long time, I didn't even know where my daughter was. I've never had that situation in my life, to not even be able to imagine in my mind what she was doing.
18-year-old Catherine disappeared just after finishing her freshman year in college.
Catherine, Jonathan would just like you to come down and...
Please, I just want to say hi.
It took 2 months for the family to come this close.
I love you so much. I can't leave here knowing that I could have just given my sister a hug.
Still not close enough to hug. Their story began when they got this letter back home in California.
Mom, I'm writing to tell you that I'm going to be traveling around the country to work with alcohol and drug-addicted people. I can no longer be reached by phone, but you can write to me.
From this dorm room at NYU, the last place Catherine stayed, their search begins. The next 2 weeks, they live with beepers and cellular phones, talking with police and lawyers, private eyes, and social workers. From them, they learned that this address Catherine used belongs to the Moonies.
When I first found out, I just screamed. A whole night, I screamed. And then I realized that what I had to do was get busy.
Very busy. It became her life's work.
The unfortunate thing is, this is a group, you just can't go up and say, hey, I want to talk to my daughter.
Right.
Catherine's mother, Cynthia, and Catherine's 16-year-old brother, Jonathan, put together a team of family and friends with counselors who are all former cult members.
Could we ask her to come and bring one friend?
No, you ask her to come, period. See, she hasn't told you she's with the Moonies.
Catherine's 80-year-old grandmother wants to know why the police cannot go in and bring out her granddaughter.
Why can't America somehow put its foot down on this?
We have freedom of religion, and everyone has the right to believe anything they want to believe.
And they're advised that legally they cannot hold Catherine against her will.
And if the person is detained in any way, that not only will we leave, but we will notify the authorities.
It's going to be difficult. It's a delicate, you're going to get an Academy Award when you're done. The unfortunate
I don't want an Academy Award, I just want my daughter.
The strategy they decide on, mother and brother, aunt and uncle go to the house on Long Island where Catherine has been living with 16 other Moonies.
Hello. Hi. I'm here to see my daughter, Catherine. We know she's living here, and we want to see her now.
Well, the thing is, I don't know what makes you come here, but this is a friend's house.
They know Catherine's been living here. They know because 2 other recruits who just defected told them she was.
We need to see my daughter, and we need to see something. Sorry, she's not here.
Okay.
Sorry, she's not here. It's no problem. We come back tomorrow.
No, we cannot come back tomorrow.
Maybe you can give us a phone call.
I'm going to fast forward to here.
They were right in front of their building. And then they eventually said they had a weekend program with a youth hostel. Would I like to go?
Mm-hmm. And you said yes?
Eventually, I said yes.
Then what happened after that?
They put me in lots of lectures and a rigorous schedule where I never had any time to myself. And eventually it came out that we were supposed to worship Reverend Moon, and slowly, after really getting us to buy out their philosophies.
What about this whole concept of brainwashing, Kirsten? Did you feel like that was going on?
Not while I was there. I know I felt strange, and I kind of lost my self-will to do anything outside of what we were doing, because no one ever initiates their own actions there.
Mm-hmm. You became very dependent on the people leading the group?
Yeah.
Did they ever encourage you to contact your family?
Not at all.
Did they discourage you?
Definitely. They think that, or they make people believe that the outside world is ignorant and they're enlightened, so the outside world doesn't understand them and will ostracize whoever's in the cult.
Why did you finally leave?
My family figured out where I was based on a small phone call, and my grandmother, family friend, showed up, and they wouldn't let me leave with them until I promised I wouldn't, but I decided I would anyway.
And you had been there only about a month at that
Yeah.
point. All right, Kirsten Reed, thanks so much for talking with us this morning.
Thank you.
Ahead in our next half hour, we'll hear from the spokesman for the Unification Church. And we're back in a moment, right after this. In our last half hour, we brought you the story of one family's efforts to contact a daughter who has joined the Unification Church, the so-called Moonies. Here now is Dr. James Baughman, president of the Unification Church of America, and Stephen Hassan, an expert on cults and mind control. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Dr. Baughman, I understand that you don't like to be called Moonies.
Well, we put out a statement a couple of years ago saying that Moonies have been, the word has been used in a pejorative, derogatory sense, and we've asked that the public not use it.
What would you prefer to be called?
Members of the Unification Church. We feel that it's the same tone that people use in using other derogatory terms towards different races and
And
nationality.
you don't like to be called a cult either, is that right?
Well, of course not. I'm a social scientist, and the word cult has social scientific and theological meaning in its proper sense, but it has been used in a very negative sense to suggest dangerous, destructive organizations which brainwashing the commitment.
Yes, I believe that the Unification movement is a dangerous, destructive cult, a pyramid-structured group with a man at the top who claims to be the Messiah, greater than any spiritual leader in history, not unlike David Koresh or Jim Jones, that uses deception, recruitment, and systematic mind control techniques to undermine people's ability to think critically and to make people dependent on the group. And what I saw in the videotape was characteristic of what hundreds of other families have experienced, desperately trying to find their loved ones. This is the issue.
Let's talk about the situation with Catherine, the story we saw in our last half hour. I know that.
And now this is Catherine after she came out.
Catherine to go home to visit her family. She since has decided not to return to the cult, and this morning she joins us here in New York. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Kitty.
Good to see you. First of all, let's just go back, if we could, for a moment. Why were you attracted to this organization? How did they get you involved?
Well, in a sense, one isn't really attracted. They recruit. I met someone on Broadway. I was living in New York at the time. They had a survey asking questions about things I was really interested in, and they happened to have an office in the building where I'd just gotten a job. So I went up with them, and they told me they were having a 7-day seminar on world leadership, which I was very interested in. And they talked about spirituality and leadership and family and things that were really important to me. So I thought, well, I don't know, this is not something I would normally do, but it seems like a really safe group, really supporting things that I support, and why not just see what they have to offer?
And it took, what, about a week before Reverend Moon's name was ever mentioned, is that right?
Yeah, I had no idea that it was connected with Reverend Moon. In fact, I asked if their organization was connected with the Unification Church, and they flatly denied it.
What happened next? What was your life then like once you slowly, I guess, became a part of this?
Well, I mean, your life changes. The one thing that's constant is your schedule is always packed. You always get up, go to a lecture, have a break, go to a lecture, have a break, eat lunch, do sports, come back, have a lecture, have a break, have a lecture, and then all the way up until dinner, you have dinner, then you do something like casual, and then you go to bed. So every day, from the time when you are just being introduced to the doctrine to when you've given up your life to make money for Reverend Moon, what continues is your days packed with just doing things that are related to the group.
Do you feel as if you were brainwashed?
Well, brainwashed, or I think the better term is mind controlled. There are several techniques that almost any group can use on almost anyone to influence their thinking.
You also, it was exacerbated by the fact that you were getting, 3 hours of sleep a night, so you were very sleep deprived, is that right?
Actually, in my case, sleep deprivation was not the most important factor in the mind control. In my case, the control of information was much more important.
How was that carried out, the control of information?
It was incredibly strict. I mean, there were no newspapers, no televisions, no phone calls made alone. I did not leave the premises of their training camp for over a month. There is someone who's been in the organization a long time always with you. So you can't have conversations among other new members without them being aware of what you're talking about. So there's no exchange of information, there's no incoming information.
What about the efforts by your family? I mean, it was just so heartbreaking to see your little brother trying desperately, pleading with you to come and just hug him or tell him you were okay to have some kind of contact with him. Would they not allow you to do that?
Well, as far as that situation with my brother was concerned, I was instructed. I mean, I went to the woman who was my authority figure. I asked her if I could see my brother, and she said, no way.
And even when they finally acquiesced and allowed you to see your mother, you were very robotic.
Right.
Why did you behave that way?
Well, what mind control does is it takes away you. I mean, it's that.
So